That's correct. I've never been in a meeting where participants can record other than the co-host. That's all.
Okay. All right. So it seems like then the best option is going to be to you have the recording and then they email you to get a copy or email you to get it sent to them, right? That sounds like the best solution that we can offer at this point.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm showing 514 at 5:15. We'll start with that message. We'll introduce and then we'll start.
All right.
Hey, Rick, good morning. Open your mic up there just to get a quick test, okay?
Okay, good morning.
All right, good. Good. Yes, sir. I apologize, man. I am I've messed this up and I apologize, but we're going to try to get these guys what they need. And and so both of you, once you're done speaking, just hold tight in case someone has questions. Media that are on the line at this point, let's let each of them do their presentation, and once they are finished, then you can ask your questions, and we'll advance that way. Okay. We do not. There is not an ability for us to let you all record directly the meeting. What Larry is going to do, Larry is the one that you received the link from. Larry is recording it as the host, and he will send you the meeting after we're done. Okay. All right. I show 5:15, and so we'll start now. The speakers for today are from the Winston-Salem Fire Department. We have Patrick Grubbs, who is the incident commander, and we have, I believe it's Assistant Chief Rick McIntyre. You see the spelling of their names there, and we'll begin now with Patrick Grubbs. Patrick, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Battalion Chief Patrick Grubbs. So reporting on the incident at 4440 North Cherry Street in Winston-Salem. We still do have an active fire. Our message has stayed the same the whole time. We're asking all the citizens to stay out of the area. If they're in the area, to evacuate. There still is a risk of explosion at this time. And the major changes for us overnight have been with the weather. We had rain come in tonight and in through the morning. That's gave us some positives and some negatives. The positive is it's putting water on the fire, which is always a good thing. It's not always a good thing, but in this situation it is a good thing to be putting water on the fire, cooling the area. The negative is when the rain comes in, it pushes the smoke down lower to the ground, creating more of a health hazard. So again, we're asking everybody, if you have any kind of respiratory illnesses or any kind of respiratory compromise, stay out of the smoke cloud. And it's also not good for anyone that is healthy. The other change is that with the rain coming in, our drone teams have not been able to fly as they normally have to survey the scene. We have had companies go up to the scene and do a survey. And when we're surveying, we're trying to check to make sure the conditions have not changed. And we're doing that from about 300 foot away. We do have a fire truck at the scene that is flowing water on some hot spots. And there is no fire personnel maintaining a position at that location. And that's all I have for now.
Morning, waiting for daylight.
Okay, we'll go now to McIntyre.
Good morning, Rick McIntyre, fire investigator with the Winston-Salem Fire and Life Safety Division and lead investigator on this incident. We've already initiated the fire investigation process. We have assembled a team of 12 people that consist of multiple agencies to assist us. We have members from the SBI, we've had members from ATF, we have members from the North Carolina Office of State Fire Marshal, and we often ask for those agencies to assist us when we have a large or a complex incident that we need to investigate. So they bring some additional skill sets and experience to the team. Currently, they are collecting information, conducting interviews, working with reviewing some of the drone video footage to help us understand, at least at this point, the layout and the damage that's occurred. Obviously, we have not started the on-scene examination yet, and that will be done only when it's safe for our personnel to do so. That is obviously be coordinated with the suppression operations, and that will come later. This is an ongoing investigation.
Okay.
That's all I've got this time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll open it up now for questions.
How much is the risk for explosion? Is it the same level of concern this morning as it was yesterday? Has it increased? Has it decreased? What's that looking like right now?
Yeah, so the question was our risk for explosion. With that, right now, we still do have a risk for explosion. As time goes by and as the fire gets smaller, the risk obviously does go down some, but there is still a risk. One of the big things is it's kind of held us up overnight was in the darkness. So as the sun comes up this morning, we will be able to make a better assessment as to our explosion risk.
Do we know if the fire has gotten smaller given the rain overnight? Can we assume that?
It has gotten a little bit smaller, but there is still active fire there. And we're only able to observe it right now from about 300 foot away. Before we were using drones and helicopters, and we do not have access to that in the rainy conditions.
And what determines when it's safe for investigators to go back on site?
So we have specialists here from several states. We have air monitoring equipment from the EPA here. So what we've done is put monitors all around the scene. We're checking for different gases. And once those gases get to safe levels to be close enough to start investigation, as well as when our experts examine what's actually burning. There's a big difference between if we have structural members burning versus chemicals burning. And from a 300 foot away, we're unable to tell, especially at night, without drone footage.
And for the people in the evacuation zone areas, is there a message you can give to them as far a better update as to maybe a better time reference this morning when they could be back in their homes?
No, ma'am, not at this time. We do not have a projected return time.
Was the State Highway Patrol able to get the aerial shots yesterday, and did that identify closer where the fire is coming from?
Yes, we were able to have the helicopter come in. We had a hazmat technician on the helicopter with them. We got a bunch of aerial shots. We got aerial shots of the rail car that was one of our primary concerns, and it was very effective.
Are you able to rate the explosion risk? And can you say how close you all have been able to get to the site?
So I don't want to rate the explosion level without having a better assessment of it. We have had crews that were pretty close to it because we set up some unmanned monitors close to the scene to hit hot spots. As far as our recon teams, we're staying out about 300 feet.
In the area that the ammonium nitrate is burning, is that an area that is able to be exposed to the rain, or is that covered?
So there's ammonium nitrate throughout the building. To answer that question, it should be open. The building has, for the most part, collapsed. There are some still covered areas, but mostly those are going to be open to the rain.
Can you talk a little bit about the codes this business had to follow or didn't have to follow based on the age of the business?
McIntyre, do you want to address that or you want me to?
So the original building was built in 1939 and opened in 1940. The only building code that was in effect at that time was the 1936 building code. So why is that important? The way that building codes work in the state of North Carolina, by statute, the North Carolina Building Code Council is tasked with developing, adopting, and amending building codes in the state of North Carolina. That includes not only the fire code, but building code, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. That process, through the legislative process, determines what codes are in effect at the time that a building is constructed. If they don't change that building, they only have to meet the code that it was built under. When they do make a change, they have to meet the current building code. And I'll use this site as an example. There are five buildings on this site. The original building and several other buildings that were added to after the fact, that were built in the 40s, the 50s, and the 70s. Each time that one of those buildings was constructed, added to the site, it had to meet the building code that was in effect at the time of that building's construction.
I understand that. So can you kind of give me a comparison of if that business were to open today, what kind of codes would they have to meet that the original building, not the more newly constructed ones, had to meet?
The building codes today have a lot more detail and requirements in regards to chemical processes and chemical storage. Essentially, back in the 30s and early 40s, there was very little in the building codes at the time for chemical processes and chemical storage. Now, it's much more detailed, and that would be what they would be required to meet if they built it today.
What kind of monetary value are we looking at if any laws or changes were made that this business had to be up to today's code?
I can't tell you what it would cost them to basically build it new to today's codes. I don't have that information.
Have you heard anything else from the owners of these companies? I know yesterday they did talk about the $100,000 to help the evacuees, but anything else from the company?
From the investigation team, we have had significant contact and discussions with the on-site personnel. They've all been very, very helpful for providing information for the investigation to this point. I haven't had any contact with the corporate.
I know we've seen the inspection reports from the last 3 years from this city. Have there been any other state records that you've reviewed or anything that show prior safety issues at this building, anything that may have been electrical or the storage of chemicals or anything of that nature?
The fire department is required to conduct annual inspections there. In addition, there are other agencies that conduct inspections there as well for stormwater issues, environmental issues, and those records we are collecting as well.
Can you kind of go through when you do your inspections, do you go inside the building? Is it just more of an outside surveillance or a superficial surveillance of, hey, a fire extinguisher? How detailed do your teams get in those inspections?
The typical inspection process for a facility like this starts ahead of time, starts a couple weeks ahead of time to collect information and review the last of the last inspection that was done. when the inspector goes on site, he has a number of things that he or she has to do, meeting with the management of the facility, reviewing any documentation that they have that we required to look at, a facility walk down basically from one end to the other, looking for any fire hazards or fire code violations. Now we're there to enforce and educate on the fire code. If there is a process going on or an update going on or a retrofit going on, then that portion of the work and that portion of the building has to be brought up to the current building code. For example, if they were doing electrical work in that facility or in some portion of that facility, they would be required to meet the current electrical code as opposed to the one that was from years ago when it was originally built. So when the fire inspection process is going through, physically walking down all areas of the facility, looking at any fire code violations or any fire hazards or any safety problems that they recognize, and that does include storage of chemicals. That includes any fire or life safety equipment that they have, if it's to make sure it's properly maintained and ready for service, and electrical issues that that the inspector would note.
Do you know of any permits this company has taken out recently to make any changes to its facility?
We're still collecting that information. I don't know of any at this point, but we're still collecting that information.
And does a business like that have to have a different kind of timeline of inspections than maybe another business? Like, is it, do you do it more frequently because of the hazardous chemicals on property?
Sure. So the building inspection process in the state of North Carolina has frequencies assigned to the type of occupancy. A lot of businesses in jurisdictions are conducted every 3 years or every 2 years or every 1 year. This is considered a hazardous occupancy due to the chemical storage that they have, and it gets an annual inspection because it is a hazardous facility.
Understood. And then just to get a little personal, just asking how you, Grubbs, the rest of your team are doing with this ongoing fight, and talking a little bit about what it's like for you to fight a fire from, if you will, so far away when your teams are used to being up so close and, being so much more involved in these kind of situations.
So I'll take that one, Rick. One of the big things for us, it is a hard challenge for us to kind of step back and look at everything from a distance. I was on one of the first arriving companies when this incident happened, and our crews battled for 2 hours to try to stop the fire before we realized that the conditions were unstoppable at that time. Making the decision for us to leave is very hard, and understanding what the impact to the community could be is very hard for us. We have to make these decisions every day, and typically they do not include leaving the scene. So it's challenging for us, but when we look back, we understand the risks that are involved, and that's why we make the decisions that we have to make.
Since you were one of the first ones on the scene, can you kind of describe to me through your eyes, the intensity of that fire when you pulled up, that you knew, hey, we've got to pull back?
Yeah. So basically the intensity was, when we got there, it was a defensive attack, but looking at it from our standpoint is we try to prevent it from going any further than it already was. And that just was not going to happen. There was not enough water in the area. There was not enough. It it was already too far gone before we got there to do anything to stop it.
And can you
And
just
for the
describe
lead,
the
for the lead
intensity of the flames from your perspective? Like, how close could you get before you felt that heat?
I mean, you can feel it from a very long ways away. Where our crews were operating was within 20 foot of the building, and the heat was immense. But that's what we do, and that's why we serve.
for the lead investigator, are there any preliminary investigation details you can share? And also, when you're able to get to the building or into the building, how long could it take for you all to find the cause?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So are there any preliminary investigation details you can share? And then also, when you all are able to enter the building, how long could it take for you all to find the cause?
So the on-site investigation can be very complicated, especially if they're due to the extent of damage. At this time, we can't make an estimate of how long the on-site investigation is going to take. Once we are able to access the site and begin that process, we'll have a much better idea of how long that portion of the investigation is going to take.
Can you talk a little bit about the initial call? I know that you've said an employee from the company called 911 and it seems the flames started in the loading dock area. Is that correct? And how do you know that at this point if you couldn't get that close to the fire?
So the actual first 911 call that was received was actually from a passerby that was driving past on North Cherry Street. However, within the space of 3 to 4 minutes, there were over a dozen phone calls to both from the facility and from passersby and others outside the facility that saw the fire. So within the space of just a few moments, there were multiple calls coming in. The initial the initial 911 call came from a passerby.
Okay, and have you been able to determine, because per the website, the business was closed at 4 p.m. I believe the first call, as it's been identified from either you or someone else, was 6:45 p.m. Have we been able to determine if the business was closed, if anybody was actually at the facility at the time the fire started?
There was one employee left at the facility, and the 911 center did get a call from that last employee reporting the fire, and that was at 6:43, I think. Yeah.
And with the smoke being low lying, is there a possibility that you all will extend the perimeter for air quality issues?
At this time, we don't have we don't plan to extend the perimeter. Again, like I said, as soon as the sun comes up this morning, we get a better assessment on it. We might be able to go in and do more extinguishing efforts, but we don't know any of that right now. And I don't anticipate it getting any larger this time.
How will you be able to assess when this situation is safe for firefighters to actually be able to fight this fire on site? And really, what will that look like what are the first steps once you're actually able to be on site?
So our first steps is we have specialists. Again, like I said, we have specialists here. We'll get them on site, analyzing what's actually burning. Again, it depends on if it's structural members, natural things, or if we're dealing with chemicals at that point. Once we make that determination, then we determine what kind of extinguishment we want to do. This is going to involve heavy equipment as well. So it's a lot of variables, and I apologize, we just don't have that information until we can get out there on the site and give you some more information.
Do you guys think that the city was prepared for something like this, considering that we have this facility of this kind in our own backyard?
We're always prepared, for anything that might come up.
I was reading that there always has to be, when companies like this have chemicals of this nature on site, there's always a pre-plan because the hazard that's already there. What pre-plan does your team have for this facility, and what part of it did you implement, and how did it help you in this situation to keep things from, to this point, exploding?
So this building has been pre-planned, as well as McIntyre also discussed. We do fire inspections at this location. We knew the hazards going in, and like I said, we used everything at our disposal to try to control this fire to where we're at now.
How did you attack this from the start differently than you would a normal fire, knowing the hazardous materials on site?
So the biggest concern when we arrived is trying to protect the chemicals from the fire, and everything. One thing that's hard to explain is that how fast things change on the scene. And when they changed, and we knew that we were no longer able to protect the chemicals from the fire, then we started to change the way we were thinking.
Have there been fires on this site in the past?
McIntyre, do you want to address that, or?
Could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear you.
Have there been fires on this site in the past?
Okay, have there been fires on the site in the past? They have had some incidents, some minor incidents. Within the past couple years, that's as far back as we've reviewed, they've had a couple minor electrical fires, or fires in electrical equipment, process equipment. And that's basically the extent of it. I think there might have been a car fire out there years ago in the parking lot, but that's basically it.
And have you all investigated a fire of this magnitude? And are you able to give any examples where your team has experienced something like this?
So obviously this is a major and complex fire, especially involving the chemicals that are on the site. And that's why we enlarged our investigation team to bring in experienced investigators from other agencies to help us through this process as part of the team. So obviously we don't have a lot of facilities like this, but this particular facility with the fire, the size of the fire and the chemicals involved, we reached out to other agencies for assistance.
Seeing this fire and what happened in your city, and I want to say you guys have done an outstanding job fighting this fire and communicating with the media and the community. So thank you for that. But after seeing what happened here at the Weaver Fertilizer plant, do you think there needs to be changes, and buildings that are older like this or grandfathered into older codes need to be, for the lack of a better word, forced to be up to today's code?
So at this time, we're not going to really discuss any, what the afterthought. Right now we're in the command post. We're still trying to make decisions for right now, what's going on today.
Do you anticipate that we will hear directly from someone from the company at one of your upcoming news conferences? I know they've released, video statements, but actually get in front of the microphone and take questions from the media?
No, I can't answer that at this time.
Can you briefly just talk about what today's plan will look like?
Again, the same thing as before. The plan is, as soon as the sun comes up, we got to get on site and reanalyze everything. Once we do that, then that's when our plan really starts. It could be another day, it could be another week of waiting. We don't know. we don't want to speculate on what we're going to do until we get out there and see what's going on.
Do we have an idea of how many people have evacuated? I know over the last few days we haven't. Do we have any better idea now?
There's no way for us to tell who completely evacuated. The biggest thing with that is we don't know that they don't have to report to us that they have evacuated. So we do not know how many have evacuated.
Are there still on the ground evacuation efforts with a PA system or any sort of door knocking, or is that over at this point?
As Chief Mayo said, we have saturated the area and tried every option that we know of to get the message out. And we continue to do that even with this press conference now.
I just wanted to personally thank you for your time and waking up so early day after day and being available basically 24/7 to answer our questions and update us. So I thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. And like I said, I want to reiterate to everyone, we want to get everyone back into their homes as soon as possible. We've got a lot of resources out here as well, and we understand that people are not in their houses, but we want to make sure that we do this in the most safe way that we possibly can do it.
All right. Thank you, men. I know you guys need to get back to your work there. Media, thank you again for attending and your patience. Larry Bell is handling getting a recording for you all. And so if you want that recording, just email him. He's the one that sent you the link, and we'll get that to you as quickly as we can. Thank you, Chief McIntyre and Grubbs. We thank you for your work, and we will see you all later today. We'll also follow the Twitter account to know about the next scheduled news conference. Thank you, guys.